What's going on, guys? Welcome back to WWE Network and Show, where I, Graham G. Matthews, break down all the original content I watch on the WWE Network and on Peacock. And today we're talking the April 11, 2022 edition of Raw Talk. Jackie Redmond, Matt Camp in the studio, running down the biggest headlines from Monday's Raw, which honestly I thoroughly enjoyed. I really like Raw this week. I said that about last week's Raw. A lot of people didn't like the big post-WrestleMania Raw. A lot lower expectations for this episode because it wasn't a post-WrestleMania episode, or at least the immediate post-WrestleMania episode. And I thought it was pretty good. Some good wrestling, storyline progression. I enjoyed it for what it was. So they run down the biggest headlines from the show before replaying the VIP lounge from the show that saw MVP and Bobby Lashley exchange words explaining why MVP turned on Lashley, which was a good segment. We hear backstage from MVP with Sarah Schreiber and Omos, and MVP says that, listen, he made a business decision about as far as turning on Lashley and why he aligned with Omos. And he said that he's moved on to bigger and better things. That's great that Lashley feels that he could do things on his own without MVP now, but MVP has moved on as well. And he could do for Omos what he did for Lashley and Lashley becoming a former WWE champion. Maybe Omos can do the same. In MVP's eyes. In my eyes, probably not. And he says Lashley is dangerous when Sarah says, listen, what happens when Omos isn't by your side? And MVP says, listen, Lashley is dangerous, but King Kong fears Godzilla too. So he didn't exactly answer the question, but kind of just posed Omos as a bigger threat than Lashley, even though Lashley won at WrestleMania, but it is what it is. Booker says that MVP was the MVP of the pandemic era with Bobby Lashley, which I completely agree with. Those two, the Hurt Business on the whole, fantastic faction, broken up way too early. Reunited only to be broken up again within a matter of months, but it was a great period of Raw as far as, it wasn't a great period of Raw, but it was great when they were on top. Booker sees Omos as an upgrade for MVP. He's on MVP's side here and sees Omos as an upgrade for MVP as his new client. And Matt Camp plays up Bobby Lashley's accomplishments as a former WWE champion, and someone that can't be taken lightly, as someone who beat Brock Lesnar earlier this year to win the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble. Whereas with Booker sees Omos and MVP as a team that can't lose. Booker also says that Veer's on a mission right now. He's got the Mysterios in his sights after beating Dominic Mysterio on Monday's Raw. And Matt Camp kind of reiterates that Veer sent a strong message on Monday by annihilating Dominic, having him be forced to get sent out of the arena in an ambulance. And that Ray's probably going to be out for retribution on the Sooner side. Booker says that he's at the top of his game right now, is Veer. So for Ray to watch out, he kind of issues a warning to Rey Mysterio. They then talk about Ezekiel, Elias's younger brother from Raw. This is quickly, we've only seen it for 2 weeks, and I don't want to jump onto the bandwagon, but I kind of am. But, I said this last week, and I'm liking it now. This Ezekiel shit with Kevin Owens is turning into a real guilty pleasure on this program. Like, they are really committing to it, and it's fucking funny. So we hear him backstage here at Raw. He's already talking to Kevin Patrick before Kevin says, listen, Ezekiel, we're live here. We're live on Raw Talk. And Ezekiel says that it's a dream for him to be, a dream come true to be on the Raw roster. And that it's upsetting that he's being accused of lying by Kevin Owens. But next week, come the lie detector test with Kevin Owens, he's going to prove that he is indeed Ezekiel, Elias's younger brother. Back in the studio, Matt Camp references Kevin Owens' moment with Elias, actually, on Raw from 2018 in Seattle. Great throwback moment there. It doesn't feel like it's been 3.5 years, almost 4 years since that moment, but it has been. That was one of the all-time Raw segments where Kevin Owens and Elias, if you go back and watch it, it's on the WWE YouTube channel from I want to say October of 2018, but they got monstrous heat in Seattle for, kind of making fun of the local sports team or whatever. And they got fucking booed. It was, the heat was incredible in Seattle that night. But anyway, they also recapped Cody Rhodes versus Miz from Raw on Monday, a match that was won by Cody Rhodes, before replaying Seth Rollins' challenge to Cody for WrestleMania Backlash, which Cody immediately accepted. Matt Camp says that it's a different dynamic with Cody and Seth 8 years later. They have history from almost a decade ago when Cody was fighting the Shield that Rollins was a part of for his family's honor, and that amazing Battleground tag team match, Cody and Goldust against Seth and Roman. Amazing match. But he also kind of looks at it from Rollins' perspective as well, and that if Rollins can beat Cody come WrestleMania Backlash, maybe that's his ticket to getting a title shot against Roman Reigns in the not-too-distant future in a rematch from the Royal Rumble. They replay the Usos versus the Street Profits. They kind of move away from that. That main evented the show. They'll get back to that at the end. Before replaying the Sonya Deville angle and her attacking Bianca Belair, the Raw Women's Champion. A great angle. kind of a predictable path as soon as she started talking about Bianca's next challenger. You kind of had to assume it was going to be Sonya, but it was really well done. I love the idea of those two feuding over that championship, so I'm all on board with that. We hear backstage real quickly from Sonya with Sarah Schreiber. Sonya says that Adam Pearce is simply just jealous that she's still in her prime and that he isn't. And when Sarah asks, well, how do you fear that this might affect your job? And she says, how can it affect my job when I'm the one in charge? And then she walks off. What Sonya doesn't realize as a character is the fact that she is not the be-all, end-all of WWE management. And if Vince saw fit, he could always remove Sonya from authority, which he probably should have done in storyline many months ago after bullying Naomi over on SmackDown, but whatever. So, yeah, that's what she says before she walks off. Booker says that Bianca will walk out on top regardless as the Raw Women's Champion, probably come their championship clash at WrestleMania Backlash. Matt Camp feels that Bianca is more prepared now, kind of agreeing with Booker, saying that Bianca is more prepared now in her second reign as champion than she was during her first about a year ago as the SmackDown Women's Champion. And then they kind of transition into the tag team stuff that I mentioned earlier with the Usos, RK Bro, Street Profits. Booker says Randy Orton is a dangerous guy, but with the Usos, they were smart to strike first. Roman Reigns wants the Bloodline to be the greatest group ever and holding all the gold, and Booker says that's only going to benefit the Usos, who are now motivated to take those tag team titles from RK Bro. And that was Raw Talk in a nutshell for April 11, 2022. So, pretty ordinary edition of Raw Talk. I'm just here to recap the show. The Ezekiel stuff is great. That was a very short-lived interview, but I enjoyed this episode. We heard from MVP, we heard from Sonya, we heard from Ezekiel very briefly. Short interviews, they really would have thrived on the old, version, the old formatting of Raw Talk, which they've since done away with, unfortunately, for a long time now, since the summer of last year, since they went back on the road. But this was a fun recap show for Raw on Monday, which, again, I enjoyed the episode overall. So thank you guys for checking out my review of Raw Talk for this week. I appreciate it. Be sure to like the video, drop a comment, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more daily content. Also, hitting that bell button to be notified every time a new video goes up. Have a great rest of your week, guys. I'm Graham G.S. Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.